We're now heading into an era where video games are being priced at $70 more frequently, and with the recent release of Forspoken and the very mixed reviews that the game received, it leads me to question the industry and whether or not this is justified. But before we can tell if this is justified, let's take a look at a few things. Now, according to Wiki, video game monetization is a type of process that a video game publisher can use to generate revenue from a video game product. Keep in mind that we're talking about revenue and not profit. But let's take a look at what revenue is and profit in general. Total revenue is equal to number of units sold multiplied by cost per unit. The gross profit is equal to revenue minus COGS, or the cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold can be thought of as things required to make the goods, and this includes materials and direct labor costs for production to produce the thing. But still, this doesn't paint the whole picture. More importantly, we have net profit, which equals gross profit minus operating expenses minus the tax. Operating expenses, it's like the overhead, business related stuff, payroll and all that jazz. As far as I've been around, I haven't seen video games rise much in cost when it comes to a buy to play model for a new release. Video games, I believe, were around $50 when I was young, then rose to $60 and stayed there for a while, and now the $70 price tag is starting to rear its ugly little head. That being said, let's take a look at some quick numbers and do a comparison. Let's look at a game like The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 was released on May 18th, 2015. It generated a revenue of $2.1 billion with a net profit of $1.15 billion. Let's go back 25 years, where on November 21st, 1990, Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System generated about $1.748 billion. In terms of revenue, there's not much of a difference, but there are a lot of different things to factor in. Keep in mind, we're comparing these games that have been sold and produced under very different scenarios. They were produced at different times in different parts of the world, as well as over longer/shorter periods of time. Now, I couldn't find the net profit of Super Mario World, but let's just assume for a second that the net profit percentage is equal to the net profit of something like The Witcher 3. My intuition would say that operating expenses would have only increased over time, as well as the cost of goods sold. So, doing some quick napkin math, if we look at The Witcher 3, we have $1.15 billion in profit divided by the $2.1 billion, giving us 55% of the revenue that resulted in a net profit. If we apply that 55% to Super Mario, we get around 961,400,000. We can loosely look at these numbers and say that Super Mario World's net profit was around 96% of The Witcher 3's net profit then. These figures lead me to believe that companies aren't charging as much as they could. However, $60 is already a lot, and always has been to me, with the way that we treat games as consumers, and also we have to take into account the current economy with the cost of something like eggs being absolutely out of control. Cost of college is absurd, everything has a subscription service, and good paying jobs without degrees can be hard to come by. But the real question is, can these companies justify a higher price tag for the experience? First, let's take a look at what the average gamer in the US spends on video games per month. According to Statista, in 2022, gaming audiences in the United States spent an average of $23.87 on video games per month, up from $19.94 per month in 2019. In July 2022, the retail gaming revenue in the United States amounted to $4.18 billion. With more people getting into PC gaming, sales being rather abundant on Steam, and the average person having less time to spend on video games because they are working their asses off, it's interesting to see that consumers seem to be spending more. This could be that COVID produced a lot of horny waifu loving, no shower taking, sweaty ass achievement hunting video game addicts, or maybe just gaming is growing overall as a whole. Don't really know, but it's interesting. Let's look at some of these releases that have come out for $70. NBA 2K21, Final Fantasy VII, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, I think that's a particular type of bundle that you need, Demon's Souls, Godfall, MLB The Show 21, and Forspoken. Obviously, some of these are older, but hey, notice a trend here. A lot of these games that are coming with a price tag of $70 are re-releases or reskins, as in the case of Call of Duty, NBA 2K21, and MLB. Now, I don't play sports games, but I do know in terms of innovation, they're not exactly considered groundbreaking. Same could be said between the Call of Duty games, which have a similar-esque feel from game to game. Then there's Demon's Souls, classic of course, along with Final Fantasy VII, which are basically reimaginings but not wholly different in concept and story compared to their original releases. However, are these the type of games to justify the price increase? Also, notice that Sony associated titles seem to be leading the effort on this front. The other two games mentioned, Godfall and now Forspoken, have not exactly performed as expected and have mixed reviews on Steam. Godfall has been praised for its looks and cosmetics, as well as its gameplay and some decent weapon variety. How Long to Beat has it pegged at 12 hours and 46 minutes for a main story playthrough and a 48-hour 35-minute completionist playthrough. Story is considered to be pretty lackluster, and the overall sentiment seems to be that the game is okay. But keep in mind, a lot of the reviews I've seen are from people who bought this game at a discount, as well as who's gonna run a completionist playthrough if the story is meh. I haven't played Forspoken, but I've seen reviews, so this is going to be based on what I've seen and heard. Forspoken, which has just been released at the time of this recording, is not doing well either, with a 6 out of 10 on both Steam and IGN, with a 68% on Metacritic. According to reviews, the game has a fair amount of negatives, including a character who plays as an edgy teen with a modern-esque persona that doesn't seem to have a dialogue that adds much value to the story. There's also no sense of wonder in the story because the character seems to show no interest in the world itself. The game is considered to be gorgeous, but doesn't come without its graphical problems, including, but not limited to, resolution drops. The enemies seem to be decently well designed, progression is okay, but just like the rest of the game, it seems like it's never fleshed out. Overall, the game is considered to be messy and lacking personality and has some pretty bland voice acting. If you want to see a review, make sure to check out ACG, who does a great job of, well, reviewing the game. I wanted to make this video to bring up a conversation about pricing in video games between both the consumer as well as the companies. Now, it's easy for all of us to hate each other, but I would like to pose an alternative where we take a different route in a world that's plagued with negatives and riddled with obvious class divides and capitalist greed. Let's try and understand both sides. Now, as for my personal opinion, I come from a very low income household, so I understand very well that what $60 really is, and the push to $70 is way out of my price range. I almost never pay full prices for games because I have more games than I have time, and also I refuse to pay that much. I'd rather have patience and let the game drop so I can get it on sale, and also I like to let other people play those games so I can decide whether or not the game is even worth it. With that approach, I find that it's hard to go wrong. I know in comparison to a meal out or renting a few movies on Prime, it's not much, but the games I've played over the years in the earlier days, like OG Zelda, Mario, and the myriad of JRPGs, have provided so much value with limited resources that when I look at these games that are coming out that have access to more resources but are falling flat, I have to question what's happening here. If these companies want to charge more, they're going to have to step it up, so to speak. And I think the only way for these companies to understand this is for people to ask themselves the same question: is this worth $70? And just vote with their wallets. I just need to say that I don't really believe in this $70 price tag, especially when these games are just overall lackluster. It seems like we're paying more for less product, less of an experience, and that is extremely concerning for people who are buying games at full price, especially to people who buy games on platforms where they don't get to choose, where they have to buy it at full price instead of getting it on sale. It's really unfortunate. Like, if you play on the Nintendo Switch, then you have to usually pay full price. There's rarely many discounts. This is something that I'm worried about in the future as we start increasing the price here. My recommendation is just wait. Don't pay full price for these games. Don't listen to a lot of the FOMO that is occurring, that is always around, especially with the dawn of Twitch and the need to just play the next new thing. I think overall, as a culture and even as a society, we need to learn some more patience, and we need to kind of temper our emotions and our need to always have something new and shiny. However, I am obviously a person, and of course I will from time to time want to jump on that hype train, because that's just how it is. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on the matter, and I hope I've helped shine a little light on this topic. Let me know in the comments what everybody thinks and if I've made a mistake. Feel free to correct me, as I don't pretend to be the smartest person in the world, and the only way to grow is to know. You like that? I just made that up. Anyway, this is Dex, signing off. Peace.